Good evening, I'm Matt Mulcahy.
I'm Megan Coleman. We are now just 1 month past the 25th anniversary of the biggest kidnapping case in the history of Oswego County. 18-year-old Heidi Allen disappeared on April 3rd, 1994.
We've gained unprecedented access to the Heidi Allen files at the Oswego County Sheriff's Department to answer questions about the investigation. Heidi's body was never found. The Thibodeau brothers were charged in her presumed death. Gary Thibodeau was convicted and spent the rest of his life in prison. A jury found Richard Thibodeau not guilty. These police photos show the inside of the D&W convenience store, largely as it was left by Heidi Allen that morning. Except the money on the counter, some of it left by good-intending customers making purchases after Heidi vanished. The cash register tape shows a purchase of 2 packs of basic cigarettes at 7:42 a.m. 2 hours later, the Sheriff's Department got a phone call from the man who bought those cigarettes, Richard Thibodeau.
Oh, here it is right here, right?
Yep. Yeah. I pulled in that way. I turned right here.
This is the same route he drove that Easter Sunday.
Well, up a little further. I'll show you where I parked. Right. Go a little more. Oh, whoa, right? And it was back like this guy was parked right in front of me, right here.
That guy was a witness who placed Thibodeau at the scene, but could not place his brother Gary there with him.
After a while, it come on TV that Heidi Allen was kidnapped from the store. I said to her grandma, I said, well, I was there. I said, everything was fine when I left. She says, maybe you ought to call and let them know that you were at least there. So I did, like a dummy. I shouldn't have done that.
Richard Thibodeau's call to the sheriff is the 7th lead in this case. Yet that phone call is not all that started the ball rolling on the investigation into the Thibodeaus. The day after Heidi vanished, Robert Aubrey with the New York State Police in northern New York alerted investigators to the abduction of a young woman from a store in Massachusetts. Her body was discovered on Easter Sunday, 1992. Her name was Lisa Ziegert. The agency investigating her disappearance and death, the Agawam police in the hometown of Richard and Gary Thibodeau.
In talking to the authorities up there, it is identical to this, other than they did recover a body approximately 4.5 miles from the scene of a white female.
Oswego County investigators immediately felt they might have 2 suspects with a history of kidnapping and killing. Records show 4 days after Heidi disappeared, Sheriff Charles Nellis made note. If Heidi Allen's body is found, call detectives in Agawam right away.
Whatever happened with that case in Massachusetts?
Well, we looked into it, and our research tracked down the outcome that came after DNA from one of the Thibodeaus was sent from Oswego County just 5 years ago, 20 years after the Heidi kidnapping. Neither Thibodeau was a match. Another man was. Tonight on NBC3, we premiered our Heidi Allen Files documentary. Nearly 1 year of research went into our reporting on the biggest kidnapping case in the history of Oswego County. We revealed information in the 8-year-old's life that was previously kept secret. We uncovered notes from investigators explaining how they quickly focused on the Thibodeau brothers. And deep in the Heidi Allen files, we found this note from lead prosecutor Donald Dodd about a file he wanted to keep from defense attorneys. For both prosecution and the defense, this was the legal case they would never forget.
There's nothing I can measure this against because this had the most moving parts of law enforcement pulling together to try and reliably find this young lady, if they could, and then hold accountable the person or persons that were involved.
Donald Dodd was the assistant district attorney in the case against Gary Thibodeau. Joe Fahey defended Thibodeau and shared in his shock when the jury found him guilty of kidnapping Heidi Allen.
Guilty.
25 years later, was justice done here?
No, it wasn't, because Gary Thibodeau died in jail for a crime he didn't commit.
When I was looking at the file, I found this note, which is the note in Donald Dodd's handwriting. This file not copied for defense attorneys. He kept it back in December of '94. While stating in court he was giving everything to the defense. The file contains statements from the mother of a little boy who may be the only documented witness who saw Heidi Allen after her kidnapping.
There were boxes and boxes of file, and what happens is this. Because something's an ongoing investigation. In fact, I think
it says ongoing investigation.
Yeah, that's what I thought it said. Yeah. So with an ongoing investigation, what happens is this, as you can well appreciate. You have the information you have at a certain stage, and then something else comes along. And what you're trying to do is to develop it to see where it might potentially take you. So it appears that that was part of the ongoing investigation.
Does it surprise you that there's an element like that that you didn't see, that you weren't allowed to see?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, given what I now know about the nature of what was turned over and what was not turned over, and I'm not surprised that there was a note saying, don't give it to me.
All of the discoverable property, which would have included that, would have been made available to the defense attorneys in the boxes of materials that we said, here, come take a look at.
Even though you have a note saying this is not for the defense attorneys?
No, Matthew. It says because it's an ongoing investigation
Right.
at the time.
There are 2 letters from FBI expert Dr. Murray Myron, who interviewed the boy. He wrote, "It is my professional opinion that Brent Moore's report of the certain events pertinent to the disposal of Heidi Allen's body, which he witnessed, are true and accurate accounts of those events." Dr. Myron continues, "It is my opinion that Brent Moore witnessed Heidi Allen's body being transported in a van, then saw her body burnt in a garage shed."
No, I didn't see that.
The attorney who led Gary Thibodeau's most recent appeals also never saw the file with the statements about the boy and his mother. ADA Dodd took pride in a system of tracking the copying of documents in this massive case. He had staff check the upper right corner of every page copied with a marker. There are no marks on the pages in the file of Deborah and Brent Moore.
I'm going to back up and tell you what I told you before. Everything that was part of the investigation was in the files, and all of the files were made available. All of it. All of it.
What was your general impression about evidence being turned over? Were there struggles with that?
Oh yeah, there was a constant struggle. I mean, they would turn over reams and reams of meaningless material, but then you'd later discover that there was something that would have been helpful to the defense and didn't get turned over.
Now tomorrow on NBC3 News at 5, we'll share more of the story of the secret file that we revealed in tonight's Heidi Allen Files documentary you watched here on NBC3. Good evening once again. I'm Matt Mulcahy. Last night here on NBC3, we premiered the Heidi Allen Files, our 1-hour-long documentary investigating the biggest kidnapping case in the history of Oswego County. A big part of this case centers around discovery and what was turned over to the defense during pretrial discovery in 1994. The Oswego County DA who was prosecuting the case, Donald Dodd, told the defense everything was turned over. In our investigation, we found a file with instructions from the DA to keep it from the defense. The Heidi Allen files that date back to 1994 and 95 fill multiple drawers and boxes in the Oswego County Sheriff's Department. Hundreds of folders are labeled with names of possible suspects, witnesses, and investigators. They have tabs of suspicious persons, suspicious vehicles, and multiple police agencies. Only one file has this handwritten cover note attached from the Assistant District Attorney who prosecuted Gary Thibodeau, Donald Dodd. December 13, 1994. This file not copied for defense attorneys, signed DHD. Inside, there are 2 letters from an internationally recognized expert in assessing whether a person is telling the truth, Dr. Murray Myron. Dr. Myron worked for the FBI. He was called upon to do a delicate interview of a witness who may be the only one on record to have seen Heidi Allen after the Easter Sunday abduction. The note on the top is from Donald Dodd, and then the letter under it's from Dr. Murray Myron. Feel free to read it. Federal Public Defender Lisa Peebles represented Gary Thibodeau during his second wave of appeals. She went through an in-depth discovery process, as did Thibodeau's initial attorney for his 1995 trial. Neither has seen this evidence before. You've never seen that before?
No,
right?
no, I didn't see that.
Okay, I'm not remembering this. This is from 1994, but I see my handwriting.
Donald Dodd prosecuted both Gary and Richard Thibodeau as an Oswego County Assistant District Attorney. This is December 13th of 94. At the same time, you're saying you've given them everything, but you've written a note saying this file not to be copied for defense attorneys. Why is that?
I'm going to back up and tell you what I told you before. Everything that was part of the investigation was in the files, and all of the files were made available. All of it. All of it.
What do the Dr. Murray Myron interviews and letters reveal? He wrote, "It is my professional opinion that Brent Moore's report of the certain events pertinent to the disposal of Heidi Allen's body, which he witnessed, are true and accurate accounts of those events. He continues, "It is my opinion that Brent Moore witnessed Heidi Allen's body being transported in a van, then saw her body burnt in a garage shed on the property of the Barlow residence on Parkhurst Road in the town of Scriba." On Easter Sunday 1994, Brent Moore was a 3.5-year-old boy. The FBI expert was brought in by Oswego County investigators to verify the accounts of events Brent made to both his mother and his Catholic Charities counselor. Dr. Myron talked with the boy. He examines numerous drawings and sketches. They show a tree, a house, and water. He found the boy's behavior consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder. It says ongoing investigation.
Yeah, that's what I thought it said. So with an ongoing investigation, what happens is this, as you can well appreciate. You have the information you have at a certain stage, and then something else comes along. And what you're trying to do is to develop it to see where it might potentially take you.
By the fall of '94, both Richard and Gary Thibodeau had been arrested and indicted. Defense attorneys were moving forward with discovery. Those lawyers would not discover what this boy says he saw. Dr. Myron concluded, "It is my considered professional opinion that Brent Moore's accounts of the events he reports have sufficient credibility as to warrant further investigation in pursuit of their ultimate physical confirmation in determining the disposition of Heidi Allen's remains." By December, the FBI expert interviews the boy again, revealing a more explosive description. And the boy says, in another part of the letter, Heidi Allen is in a van at the Barlow residence. He says she was covered with snakes and bugs. He says that a policeman with black boots shot Heidi Allen in the head. Why would you not believe this as much as you believe Mr. Swinkowski?
Mr. Swinkowski was an adult male. Mr. Stenson was an adult male. And as adults, they were able to come into court and testify under oath. Sure. And as you can appreciate, obviously that must have been followed up on, had to have been followed up on. But it never resulted in any new evidence that I'm aware of that, as it relates to witnesses that could be called.
I did reach out to the boy and his mother as part of our investigation. The boy's now 28 years old. He has a family of his own. Both declined to do an interview for this story. 25 years after the kidnapping of Heidi Allen, new information tonight from the police investigative files. Good evening. I'm Matt Mulcahy.
And I'm Megan Coleman. Last night here on NBC3, we premiered the Heidi Allen Files, our hour-long documentary investigating the biggest kidnapping case in the history of Oswego County.
Now, earlier tonight, we revealed a file that included official statements from an FBI expert brought in to validate what a young boy was saying about seeing Heidi Allen after she was abducted. Rich Mitten remembers Heidi Allen from the Mexico schools and from being a customer at the D&W convenience store. How would you describe her?
She was funny, normal, just outgoing.
When you heard she was missing, what was your thought?
It was crazy. You never know. I mean, it's kind of weird that stuff like that goes down in a little small town, that somebody just comes up missing.
Yeah.
Crazy.
How's stuff like that happen, do you think?
I have no idea.
Is Kim there?
In July of '94, Deputy William Cromie recorded his phone conversation with Rich Mitten's sister, Kim Stevens. The deputy was searching for a drug connection to Heidi Allen and her boyfriend, Brett.
Did you talk to Rich?
I talked to Rich the other night.
What did he give you for me to talk to here? Anybody?
To go and talk to these people?
Or any names that I can start with to talk to Brett about?
I can give you one, but I can only give you her first name.
Okay.
Okay, her name is Bev.
Bev?
Yeah, that was one of his and Heidi's main suppliers in Oswego.
Is that right?
Did you have any involvement in drugs yourself back then?
No.
I mean, recreationally or
No.
Nothing? No problems?
No.
Police records indicate Rich Mitten's son knew Heidi Allen before she disappeared. The statement from the boy's mother reads, around Christmas time, after a visit with his father, Brent mentioned that he saw Heidi Allen, and she gave Richie, his father, some money. Brent said Heidi has a car. It's long and reddish. The car Heidi Allen drove to the D&W Easter Sunday morning is a red Pontiac Sunbird station wagon. Records also show when handed a photo of Heidi, Brent identified her by name. I came across this record about your son, Brent.
Okay.
And it said that he was interviewed by an FBI forensic examiner in November of '94 because he'd been saying to his counselor and that he had seen Heidi Allen in a van with bugs and snakes crawling across her feet, and that he saw her on a property and that she had been burned and maybe some remains put in a garage. You ever heard that before?
I've never heard that before in my life. That's crazy.
According to a police report, in November of '94, Brent described seeing Heidi after her kidnapping. His mother said, when he saw Heidi, Richie's 3 buddies were there. In an interview with Deputy Cromie in December of '94, Brent's mother recalled her conversation with Richard Mitten on Easter Sunday of '94 about Heidi's disappearance. She told the deputy, Richard said there were 3 guys that took Heidi. And the guy that did the debriefing of him was a nationally known expert, you know, who's trained to figure out if people, and even children, are telling the truth. And he said that he thought that your son was telling the truth. But you can't picture how it could be true.
No, there's no truth to it. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Investigators did look into the property named by the boy as Heidi's location, but they never searched it. The owners of the property would not give consent and retained an attorney. Rich Mitten wonders if his son's claims were valid. Why didn't police come and question him about them? He says they did not. But records from January of '95 show his son's mother telling police about a conversation she had with Rich. The record reads, quote, Richard told her that the cops were asking about Heidi Allen, and Richard told her the cops won't get us for drugs, but they will find out about Heidi. Mitten calls the story she told police outrageous. Do you think she'll ever be found?
I hope so. I hope she's alive somewhere and just had to take off. That'd be great.
I did reach out to the boy and his mother as part of this investigation. The boy's now 28 years old. He has his own family. Both of them declined to be interviewed for this story. Good evening, I'm Matt Mulcahy.
And I'm Megan Coleman. 25 years ago this spring, 18-year-old Heidi Allen disappeared from an Oswego County convenience store. This week, we are digging into the Heidi Allen files to tell the story of her kidnapping. Her body has never been found. Gary Thibodeau was convicted of the crime. He died in prison last summer.
Now, in a 2014 push for a new trial, the Thibodeau defense team's appeal describes newly discovered evidence that suggests 3 other men abducted Heidi: James Steen, Roger Breckenridge, and Michael Bohr.
Let me ask you straight up. Did you have anything to do with Heidi's disappearance? No. What does it make you feel like when I say that, when I ask you that? Well, how do you feel when I ask you that?
No.
In March of 2013, Oswego County Sheriff's investigators questioned Michael Bohr for 45 minutes. They had started a renewed investigation into the disappearance of Heidi Allen after Tanya Priest was first to reveal to police and prosecutors possible admissions of involvement by Steen, Breckenridge, and Bohr.
What do you think happened to Heidi?
What was done with her body?
No, what happened to her? Where is she? What happened to her?
They made her disappear.
Who's they?
There's any number of places she could have ended up.
Michael Bohr told detectives organized crime targeted Heidi because she knew about drug deals. In 1995, he implicated Gary Thibodeau, but by the hearings of 2015, Bohr said Gary Thibodeau didn't do it.
So what if I told you that some people were saying that you, Roger Breckenridge, and James Steen had something to do with this?
I barely know who they are.
Right.
No.
The 1994 investigation never mentions James Thumper Steen. Roger Breckenridge appears on a witness list, but Michael Bohr gets more attention. 17 days after the kidnapping, a postal worker tells police Michael Bohr just recently returned to pick up his post office box mail. He had left town around Easter. Bohr also inserted himself into the case. He started a rough draft of a book called The Heidi Allen Triangle. In February of 1995, he offered an interview to the FBI in Syracuse. Bohr talks a lot about hearing rumors. The FBI report says he theorizes Heidi Allen was kidnapped and murdered to prevent her from disclosing information regarding a cocaine ring. In an interview recorded by police, one member of Heidi Allen's family claimed Michael Bohr was dealing drugs in New Haven, right across from the Heidi Allen Center.
She said, that guy across the street, he must be a whiz at fixing stuff. I said, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, they come in with their blenders and their toaster ovens. She said, they come in and they go out 15, 20 minutes, they go right back out. She said, he must be like awesome. And I'm like, Nancy, he's selling drugs. They're coming in and picking up drugs. No way.
Bohr, Breckenridge, and Steen all shared a common interest in scrapping, junking cars at the Crosby Hill Yard owned by the Murtaughs.
Did you hang out with Roger Breckenridge?
Oh, not really.
No?
No.
Why not?
He scares me.
Why?
I think he's fully capable of anything.
In April of 2015, Oswego County investigators traveled downstate to Beacon in Dutchess County.
She was relatively unresponsive. Somewhere in those reports it says it was a DOA, and then they realized it wasn't.
They talked with retired detectives about a near-fatal assault on a 23-year-old woman in 1985.
The owner of the house at the time was Michael Bohr, and he was being interviewed by detectives.
Oswego County detectives were not aware of this chapter of Michael Bohr's past until Gary Thibodeau's defense team uncovered it. Police considered Bohr a suspect, but he retained an attorney, and prosecutors did not have enough evidence to make an arrest.
I'm surprised she bounced back because of at the time, the injuries that she sustained. There was some doubt as to whether she'd have any memory, if she would gain her memory, or she'd even be able to walk. She took a severe beating in the head with a hammer.
Did you have anything to do with Heidi's disappearance?
No, I don't.
You didn't?
No.
Do you know who did?
No.
That was Michael Bohr talking with investigators in April of 2015. No one was ever charged in the nearly deadly assault on that woman in Beacon back in 1985.
Now, I've recently emailed with Michael Bohr. He said, quote, I had nothing to do with Heidi's disappearance. I merely responded to a public outcry for any information, and now I wish I hadn't. During that 2015 evidentiary hearing, James Steen said he had nothing to do with Heidi Allen's disappearance. He's serving life in prison for murdering his wife and her boyfriend. Roger Breckenridge also took the stand in that hearing and denied involvement in the kidnapping.